Good day, everyone, and welcome to the SuperTalk. I'm here with Jake Berry, the producer of the SuperTalk, and we're here to answer some questions. I was a presenter this weekend. I had the honor of being a presenter at the TABSE Aspiring Superintendents Institute and had a great time being able to share our leadership model. And I got with Jake and we started talking about the best way to get these questions answered because I wasn't able to make the question and answer portion of the Institute. So I'm here to answer these questions. And then we thought, well, we may as well just share them with the world because there may be somebody out there interested in our leadership model, or there may be somebody out there that's an aspiring superintendent that could benefit from these questions. So we're here to answer them. So Jake, what do we have? What's our first question?
Our first question is from Alicia Newton. And her question is, what recommendations do you have for aspiring superintendents as they prepare to apply for and receive their superintendent's positions in large and in small school districts?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind is you have to be a student of the game and really just analyzing the ins and outs of the superintendency. But there's always a piece of advice that I give aspiring superintendents and even practicing superintendents is really balance and making sure that from a mind, body, and spirit perspective that you're balanced, that you're taking care of yourselves. The job is a very demanding position, so it's important to stay on top of your game with regard to the literature and what's going on in the business, but it's equally as important to take care of your body and to take care of your mind and your spirituality. So that would be one. The other is to get a list of mentors that you can lean on. And in the 21st century, I have mentors that don't even know they're my mentors because you can go on and follow them online and see all the great things that they're doing. So have some mentors that you can build a relationship with, but just really go out there and see what the best are doing so that you can replicate. And then another is whenever you're going through graduate school and you're getting ready to become a superintendent, they talk to you about leadership styles. So they'll talk to you about transactional leadership and transformational leadership, democratic leadership, laissez-faire leadership. You get the point. There's just all this theory around leadership. But it's important to develop a model that you can put into practice in a system that'll keep you targeted on consistent improvement within the organization. And that's what we're here to share today is the McAllen ISD leadership model.
Our next question, we're kind of combine two questions on this next one. And the first one's from Quandine Jarrett. And she's asking, what stakeholders participated or collaborated on the process for sharing your four perspectives with your district? And about how long did it take for the buy-in? And then in regards to the buy-in, how long did it take in regards to the special ed population as far as the buy-in for that?
Well, one of the things with regard to the leadership model itself is it hinges on four perspectives. And these perspectives really were born through my review of literature in my dissertation. And as I got into being a practicing superintendent, I got with key stakeholders in the organization and fine-tuned those perspectives. So you look at the business perspective, the psychosocial perspective, the sense of belonging perspective, and the instructional core perspective. And I always tell people, whether you're running a classroom or whether you're running a division or an entire district or a Fortune 500 company, these four perspectives can be beneficial to you as a leader as you move an organization forward. But with regard to buy-in, it's about getting all stakeholders to understand the perspectives. In the end, it's not a lot of moving parts, and that's what makes it special is that it's very streamlined with regard to how we approach our leadership model. But it's about systems and processes, continuous improvement, leadership. All of those things are fundamental to the game. And then bringing that together with the emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, and that's a key part of it too, because when you look at buy-in, I think that you get buy-in when people can see that they can improve and make themselves better. So when somebody understands the importance of self-awareness and self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills, and how that can make you better as an individual, then the goal becomes to raise the emotional quotient of the entire organization, from students all the way up to the executive leadership team and everybody in between. But that's the goal, is to raise the emotional quotient. So the buy-in comes from getting people to understand the importance. And also if you look at the climate, the culture, and the sense of belonging, and then finally the instructional core. So when you look at buy-in, there's not really a metric to measure buy-in as much as it is just making it the fabric of the organization and constantly talking through it and making sure that we're all making an effort to get better at it.
Our third question is from Gerald Sarpy II, and he's asking, how did you initiate and monitor the success in real time for the change effort towards this leadership model?
Well, part of it is that there's some things that you can quantify and there's some things that you cannot quantify. But if you look at it from the perspective of what can we look at with regard to the leadership model and the impact that it's had on the organization, there are some quantifiable indicators that we've looked at. We've looked at the district climate survey, and we've seen some growth around that particular instrument. We've looked at the number of student disciplinary referrals. We've looked at infractions across the district. We've looked at metrics with regard to grievances, with regard to academic performance. And then whenever you look at those indicators, you can start to look back at what the leadership model is all about. For example, if you look at synergistic relationships on the business perspective side of it, then you can attribute success back to people working as a team and then give all the examples of how we're fine-tuning and getting better at that. If you look at continuous improvement and self-evaluation, systems and processes and leadership in general, just targeting that particular perspective, then we can make a correlation between all the work we've done in those particular areas. And that's the way that we look at metrics. But to say we have an instrument that measures against it, to quantify it in that particular fashion, we don't have. But we have seen a lot of success. We are an A-rated school district. We've earned the post-secondary readiness distinction. And we've done this 2 years in a row on the A, 3 years on the post-secondary readiness distinction. We've earned a perfect score on the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas for the last 9 years in a row. So that can't happen without quality synergy, continuous improvement, systems and processes, and leadership on top of everything else that the model represents.
All right. Our next question is from Rashawn Sutton, and she wants to know, what major adjustments have you had to make to your original plan to sustain the level of excellence desired for the district?
If I look at the leadership model, originally when we looked at the instructional core, it talked about high-level content. It talked about teacher skill and student engagement. The one major adjustment that we made to the model is we changed teacher skill on the instructional core to educator skill, because we believe that not only do you need high-level content, but you need high educator skill, and that's from the superintendent all the way through the organization. So really fine-tuning our skill sets and making sure that we're doing what we have to do with our particular role on the team, and making sure that from a skill standpoint that we understand value-added progress monitoring, that we understand our reteach and enrich program, that we understand the state assessment and the state curriculum, and that we know how to bundle that curriculum and deliver that curriculum. And we know how to put all students in a position to be successful. And when they're not, that we know how to make adjustments. And that comes through skill, not only from the teacher's the backbone, but they have to have a lot of support along the way. And I like to say from an executive leadership standpoint is that we create the environment that produces the results. We're not actually delivering the lessons, but we do have to put our teachers in a position to have the environment to execute quality. And the leadership model keeps us focused on that.
Our next question, we're going to combine two questions. And the first one's from Dana Adiola, and we're going to combine that with Dr. Keena Bradley. But Dana's question is, how is the leadership model communicated to all staff? And what does professional development look like to ensure practices align with the leadership model? And Dr. Bradley's question was, how do you grow those leaders?
One of the things to keep in mind is from a systems standpoint, you talk about continuous improvement in systems and processes. And one of the things that we've done a great job of is making sure that we target all audiences with regard to our team in McAllen ISD. So we have meetings with all of our directors and executive directors. We call that the director calibration meeting. We also have the professional learning community that involves over 100 leaders across the district. We have the instructional leadership seminar, and that's with our principals. We have the executive leadership team meeting. We also have institutes for aspiring assistant principals. We have leadership institutes for aspiring principals. So we do our very best to put people in a position to systemically grow, not by chance, but by design. And every one of those institutes and programs and meetings that I just talked about, the leadership model is discussed in great detail, and we make sure that everybody understands the four perspectives and that we live those four perspectives, because it's more than just a leadership style. You can understand your leadership style, but as a superintendent or as a teacher or as a director, you can execute this model regardless of whether you're running a classroom, a department, a division, a district, a Fortune 500 company. That's why it's so important to understand these perspectives. If you think about that, looking at the psychosocial perspective as an example, I won't go through the whole model, but if everybody within your classroom or if everybody everybody within your organization is making a conscious effort to be more self-aware, to self-regulate their emotions, to be motivated, to have empathy and social skills simultaneously, and taking that very seriously and understanding how important it is, then the entire organization benefits. And that's the kind of business that I want to do business with, and that's the kind of business that I want to be a part of.
All right. From Tamika Alford Stevens, we've got this question. What partnerships have you been able to establish that have helped your district operationalize its leadership model?
Well, one thing is that we knew that we wanted to replicate the best of the best in those organizations that were doing very well. So we looked at organizations and we met with executives when we were developing our customer service model, which is directly correlated with our leadership model. We met with organizations and executives and took tours of businesses such as Chick-fil-A, H-E-B, Southwest Airlines, Harley-Davidson. So over the last 5-6 years, we've met with those executives and we've got ideas from them. And we combine their ideas to put them together with ours to make sure that we not only fine-tune our leadership model, but that we also develop our customer service model to make sure that we're providing a quality experience for all of our students and their parents across our community to entice people to come to McAllen ISD and to get them to understand that when you make the choice to come to McAllen, that you'll be getting the McAllen ISD advantage that will put your children in a position to excel. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. And the leadership model is a big part of that. When you look at those 4 perspectives, because it's not a lot of moving parts. It's very streamlined, but it's very impactful when it comes to moving the organization forward.
Our second to last question is from Stacy Frenchwood, and she wants to know, what protocols do you use to monitor the impact of this leadership model?
Protocols, I would say that a lot of it's qualitative in nature. We have some that I mentioned before with regard to surveys and data that comes in with regard to student behavior and data that comes in with regard to grievances and what we can quantify. But a big part of it is also, it's like a relationship. How do you quantify the success of a given relationship? A lot of it is how you feel within the organization. A lot of it is the dynamic between people within the organization and how hard people are working and how well people are getting along. And a lot of that comes through feeling. So I would caution anybody about trying to quantify too much around the leadership model that you design. I think that there are some things you can quantify, but more than that is just consistently bringing the model forward, making sure that there is a business perspective to how you move the organization that revolves around systems and processes, making sure that there's a psychosocial part of raising the emotional quotient of the organization, creating this sense of belonging, and then focusing on your core business. I tell people that have asked me questions about the leadership model with regard to businesses in general. I say that the piece of the pie that you could pull out of the model is the instructional core perspective. If you're not an educational institution, for example, then you would slide in your core principles within your given business. But the one things that are constant is the business perspective, the psychosocial perspective, and the sense of belonging. The instructional core depends on the business. We happen to be in the education business, and this is why it works for us. But I would say that these are some of the things to keep in mind as you create your very own leadership model to move your organization forward.
All right, our last question is from Dr. Cheney Williams-Ledette, and she'd like to know, how have you had to modify your leadership model as a result of COVID-19?
COVID-19, it produced challenges for people across the world, and I don't believe that we changed anything as much as we benefited from our leadership model, because when COVID-19 hit, our leadership model came to life because we had to look at it through the lens of the business perspective. We had to say, in this new environment that we live in, that's going to be more virtual in nature, how do we synergize? How do we create teams? How do we keep the organization moving forward? In this new world that we live in, how do we get committed to continuous improvement and self-evaluation? How do we develop systems and processes now for virtual learning and face-to-face learning and all the contact tracing and all the safety protocols and making sure that we're transparent with the community? How do we develop leadership across the organization? So you can see, as I speak about COVID-19, I just talked about the business perspective. When it comes to COVID-19, you look at the psychosocial side and the challenges that society is facing, and the emotional quotient, emotional intelligence is more important than ever now. So our leadership model came to life by making sure that we were putting systems in place to continue pushing self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And when you look at the psychosocial side, this is one common theme that runs from our customer service model. It's standard one of our customer service model is the 5 domains of emotional intelligence. And then you have the psychosocial perspective in the leadership model. And then it's also part of our framework for student learning. So we're making sure that we infuse the 5 domains of emotional intelligence within our curriculum as well to make sure that we're raising the emotional quotient of our students too. So COVID-19 really made us focus on that. In addition, COVID-19 challenged us to create a culture and a climate in this new world that we lived in. So the sense of belonging perspective became very important. And then finally, COVID-19 had us look at the instructional core in a whole different way with regard to how we were delivering instruction, how we were bundling our curriculum, and how we were executing that, not only face-to-face, but virtually. And the challenges that COVID-19 presented to parents across the community as well. So we took all those things into account. So I wouldn't say that COVID-19 changed our leadership model as much as I would say that we leveraged our leadership model because of COVID-19, and it proved to be very beneficial to us.
Those are our questions, Dr. Gonzalez, and well done on the questions. I was curious on this last question about COVID-19.
Well, yeah, I do want to thank everybody that took part in the Aspiring Leadership Academy, the Aspiring Superintendent Academy with TABSE. This is a great organization. I know that when I was up and coming, when I was an aspiring superintendent, that I attended the Leadership Institute twice for aspiring superintendents, and it helped me. I made a lot of good friends there and people that helped me along the way. So I just wanted to go the extra mile for the organization by coming onto the SuperTalk. And then I thought, well, let's share it with the world because maybe there's somebody out there that's aspiring to be a superintendent or an instructional leader. And I know that I would have loved to be in an environment where I could have listened to questions like this and then got answers from a practicing superintendent. So once again, to everybody out there, I hope that this was beneficial. I hope you have a better understanding of the McAllen ISD leadership model. And if we can do anything to help you along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.